Hi everyone, this is your favorite friend Jay or Jaylan Salah as you formerly know her, film critic at Geek Vibes Nation and In Session Film. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing director Gerard Johnson and star Polly Maberly on their new Dark Thriller Odyssey that is also one woman's downward spiral into whatever you choose to seek. Polly and Gerard, I'm so happy to talk to you.
Lovely to see
Really,
you.
really lovely to see you.
Okay, Jared, how did you create this deliciously unlikable woman? Because she is such a character that I love unlikable women on screen. I love women who are ballsy, like just out there, unapologetic, mean. I loved her so much. I love Tasha, and I want to know, how did you create her?
Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons as well is like not seeing such unlikable women in a lead part. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'm quite interested. I want to see that type of character leading a film. You know, one who's unapologetic, who's quite aggressive, who's maybe got a drink problem, who's psychotic, all of those things. I think makes a real interesting lead character. And I knew that Polly had done this job as an estate agent uh, many years ago.
Mhm.
So she told me quite a few stories about her time there, and not in any way of saying this could make a great film. She never said that, but it was just like, oh, this happened and this happened, this was this what. And it stuck with me. And then when I wrote the film and I wanted to write this for Polly, I just felt, okay, I know this character. I know that she could really play this character very well.
What was
And
it about?
I just,
Made you feel that
I just, I just pushed the unpleasantness. Um,
tiny bit more.
yeah, no, I pushed all that, but trying to push the characters so much so that they're like, do we like them? Do we dislike them? And as you say, you really liked her. So that's sort of the job is I don't mind if people really dislike her or really think she's amazing. And it's quite nice that there's that you're a little bit you're in a grey area of do you side with her or is she the worst person you've ever seen on screen?
Oh, that would be
100%. And I want to know, Polly, how do you get inside this character's head? How do you prepare? And also, how do you protect yourself as an actor from going into such dark places? Because this character goes
there was no
into,
protecting myself. I enjoyed myself.
okay, that's a great start.
I, well, we had workshop period, which made everything much more succinct in my brain. That we made choices then, and that was incredibly useful, invaluable. There was a time at the beginning of rehearsals where we'd all been very cozy and we'd got to know each other. And first lot in rehearsal with me were the office crew: Charlie Palmer Rothwell, Jasmine Blackborough, and Kelly
Yeah.
Shirley. And we just talked about the hierarchy of the office, how we met, our relationships, the background. And then Gerard just suddenly said, right, let's get it on his feet. Polly, out the door. You're in the office. Let's go. And I walked out the door and I had this cold feeling come over me. And I just decided, I just thought I can run out. I can run out so easily and not actually face them. And I could hear them really brilliantly and comedically improvising and riffing off each other. Anyway, I went in and I failed miserably and I was useless. And I was trying to be like them and match them for the comedy. And instead I was laughing at their jokes. I was bad. And this feeling rose and everyone said, oh, well, anyway, let's go to the next. And we carried on for a couple of days. And then the second day, everyone left. And I just turned to Jared and I said, I think you've got the wrong girl. We can't do this. But then I had this sort of epiphany where I realized that Natasha, she doesn't listen to anybody. She doesn't match them. She bashes through them. She has her mission. She takes people for granted. And, everyone who is not with her is entirely against her and disposable. And she feels totally justified in that. And she has vulnerabilities, of course, obvious vulnerabilities, but that comes from a state of feeling unloved. She operates on her own. She uses men. She uses those around her. And she feels unloved and therefore justifiably has a massive blame complex. And you know, once I discovered those things about her, you know, a few days into filming, I just felt so liberated because I thought I've made the choices, take her or leave her. She's out there now. And then I felt I could do anything. I felt bold. And that was a really lovely place to be, however nasty she became. It was a good experience.
And translated so well on screen too, because I mean, my sister works in these competitive, domains, and she has met many Tashas, I can tell you that. So it was so refreshing to see an actual woman, kind of like a ball breaker like that on screen. She's just so tough, but also I think she uses her vulnerabilities to kind of like suppress some of her emotions with, like her intake of
Yeah.
substance and stuff like that. So, okay, I love this distinct look. I love how she looked, how she dressed.
Oh
How
my
did you
God.
agree on that?
Oh my God, agree. I'm so glad you mentioned that because I keep thinking I haven't mentioned just to Susie Harmon, who did the costumes. It's so brilliant. I tell you what was amazing was no handbag acting. Women always have to deal with handbags, and there's moving, and there's nothing in them, and you want to create your world, but unfortunately, it becomes a thing. It's so lovely not to have a handbag. I mean, maybe women relate, maybe some men relate. I'm not going to be gender specific, and I felt great just having the things in my pockets. Running in those heels. I mean, they were incredible heels, but I felt so great in these strong, the cut jackets, the long dark coats, the high boots. Both Susie and then Alan Gilmore, who created the world around it, the production designer, just walking through those sets in those heels, that was 50% of my performance. in those costumes. It's down to them.
Yes, I can imagine that. Wow.
So, mhm.
Gerard, okay, what I want to ask you is I feel like the film is, yes, a dark thriller, but it's a commentary on capitalism, on the modernity and the isolation we feel with all, like the technology and all the communication that is supposedly connecting people. We see Tasha every single time bombarded by phone calls and people in her ear talking, and it's all about the world that we are, suppressed behind screens. So I don't know, did you also want to convey that? Because I know you wanted to tell a lot of things with the film. Did you want to also comment on the isolation that this modern society has put us in?
Again, yeah, because it's happening so fast, how we are now joined to technology so much, from phones to laptops. We're doing this on Zoom now. It's come on so fast. So I did want to, and there's a scene with a Viking when he speaks about people staring at their phones, and I know it's obvious, but you go on a tube train in London, and you'll look sometimes you'll look up from your phone and notice every single person is just staring at a device. Now, if you went back 40 years ago and showed that image, it would look pretty horrifying to someone to know that that's where we are now. But obviously we're so in tune with technology. We do, it's not just for pleasure, there's work, it's everything, isn't it? It's become such a thing that we need and surround ourselves with. But also I'm interested in how London, all big cities, the development and destruction of lots of buildings and places that I love, and the pubs and certain buildings and restaurants and all these places that should be protected are just in the mind of capitalism, in the mind of big money, are just destroyed, shut up, because they can't afford the rent. Even if they were busy restaurants, busy pubs, it's not enough. And in the end, they're replaced by huge empty office blocks. And it's a shame, I'm all for new development and new areas. I mean, there's an area in London, King's Cross, they've done an amazing job. But also you've got to protect the stuff that makes London very special. So it's every film I make set in London, 3 films now, London has changed. In each film, it's changed quite a bit. every 5 years or so. You can see the differences. So they're little documents in a way of London, and trying to, there's a lot of those pubs that I'm trying to still use and stuff, because who knows how long they're going to be around for. They're closing at quite a fast rate.
100%. Okay, so what
Sorry
I want to
about
ask.
didn't answer your question necessarily, but I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Happy that you are. I just wanted to comment too that without
No, but
technology,
it's capitalism. That's what it is. It's buildings.
but I just love it. Without technology, I wouldn't be able to interview both of you because I'm in Alexandria, Egypt. So there is a benefit for it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. But I'm just saying it's sometimes it's nice to just stop and look.
Yeah, and it is also
100%.
possibly a constant headache. I mean, in Natasha's case, she's fielding calls constantly, but she's still listening, and it's in her ear all the time. But that's also, it was lovely to play, not searching for a flipping phone in your handbag. It was a beep and a constant. So the pace kept being set, and but when you talk about isolation, I suppose Natasha is just, she's used to a certain isolation, and she thrives in it as well. She's only used to operating alone and having her mission. So when the control is taken away from her, she is incredibly discombobulated, and she seeks to gain control, whatever the cost. I think that might have been a tangent too, because we're still not talking about isolation, but she's good at operating on her own.
I like that because mostly I like that. Yeah, Gerard didn't make her a sad woman because there's the sad, isolated woman trope, and here she thrives, just as you said, Polly, on her isolation. So I just love that about I love that.
There's major denial going on as well. I mean, she
Yes.
operates drugs and drink, and not, she hasn't got a therapist that she needs to go to. But
100%, yes. I would recommend it.
I relate to operating in a certain amount of denial. There's bits you can relate to.
This is why it's so easy to hate her. I'm in a gray area, seriously, with this woman, but she's just amazing. One of those amazing female characters you just want to watch. 100%. Okay. Most difficult scene to shoot for both of you, for Gerard and for Polly?
Well, for me, the most difficult was the end climax, because it was the first time really I've worked with storyboarding out a scene, because I normally work in a very sort of documentary 360 style where I use real locations, and there's no real need to storyboard. I like to sort of get my shot list as we're closer to prep time. I don't need to storyboard, but because the end sequence was quite complicated, involved lots of stunts, lots of prosthetics, lots of flares, smoke and fire and everything else, it needed a lot of planning, and it was quite a interesting way of preparing for something, having to work so closely with. I've done films with stunt guys before, but not to this level. And I think we've done such an amazing job. I'm really pleased about the ending, but I really wanted it to pack a big punch with the sound design, with everything. It needed to really be effective. So I think it achieved that. But I would say that gave me the most sleepless nights, probably just worrying about it's got to be this. But actually, once we were in doing it, once I got the storyboard, it felt okay. But that's that kind of filmmaking where you break it down. It's very bitty. It's very like, okay, let's do this little bit, and then we cut. Let me do this. I much prefer letting the camera go and then just letting it run. Do you know what I mean? So that for me was like, okay, I've got to be calm and just take my time with this. But it's worth it. But that was that. I would say that was the most.
So for me, because I didn't have so much to contend with in that arena, apart from the massive dude I had to wrestle. But aside from that, it was quite fun. But for me, the most difficult in the most wonderful way, though, was the scene with Kevin Clarkin and Tom Davies showing the gay couple around the house. And I tell you what, talking about letting the camera run, we did 5 or 6 takes, about 25 minutes long. because we were mostly in hysterics. I haven't laughed. It was so brilliant to laugh, but also so difficult. Korshan, the DOP, talks about how his eye would get misty, steamed up because he was giggling. But there were times during that shoot where, of course, it's all handheld, but Korshan would just find somebody who wasn't just corpsing, and he'd be like that, and then like that, and then no, not there, and then back to, and he couldn't find one of us that he could hold on. But it was brilliant. And Tom Davies, who is a comedian in England, and Cavan has done lots of comedy as well. They were creasing up, but what was great was, there was one reference I made to a maintenance guy. I said, don't worry, you've got Russ, this maintenance guy who is on board. He's brilliant at his job. I don't know if Russ made the film, but every time I mentioned him, he became a massive character. And we would be crying with laughter. And I said to Tom and Cav, I said, listen, I can drop him out. I don't need to mention him. And the great thing about Tom was that he said, well, if you don't mention him, I will, because it's gold. And so we were never going to escape the laughing. So that was really difficult to hold it, but he got one in the end. You just had to piece it together.
One of the best scenes. I love this scene. It's so dynamic. There is a lot of movement, and there's a lot. I was just wondering about the script as well. I hope I have time, because how did you make this script, Gerard? Like, the script is filled with life, and the dialogue is like back and forth like a ping pong match. So I want to know, how did you do it?
Yeah, it was the first time actually that I'd co-written something. So Austin Collins was a writer that I liked. I met him. He runs with Ben. They run a nightclub in Manchester called the White Hotel, and he also has written a couple of books. And we used to he'd send me scripts, and I'd send him some stuff back and forth. And then I had this idea, and I said, look, do you want to write it with me? So it was nice to work with someone. And as you say, you were saying, like ping pong back and forth. And the process was a little bit like that. I would take a scene, he would take a scene, we'd send it back to each other, we'd work on it. Very organic, very fun way of doing it. We had a week of workshop, or a week like in a writer's room in Soho, just talking about ideas. And then we went away and we worked on different sections. So it's nice. It was a really nice collaboration. And it worked really well. We've both got a similar sense of humor, both like going to those dark places. So it was a good fit.
And well, Gerard, Polly, thank you very much. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you for being so generous with your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks very much. Glad you enjoyed the film.
Yeah, I loved it. Can't wait for the world to see Tasha. Yes.
Thanks very much.